DocTalk is brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.
Hey there, folks. Welcome to DocTalk. Today, we're going to have Dr. Harold Newcomb on our show. He is a cattle technical services veterinarian for Merck Animal Health, and he's a friend and colleague that I have known for more than 2 decades. So we're just pleased to have him on the show. We're going to talk about worming your cows and how to make sure you don't have resistance with worms in the cow herd.
As dependable as the sunrise, in dairy parlors, open pastures, on ranches and feed yards across America. A place where reputation is more than a name, where the science of healthier animals is a way of life. It's the responsibility that drives who we are and what we do. Every decision, every day. It's your livelihood and our responsibility.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Welcome to Doc Talk. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson, and today I have with me Dr. Harold Newcomb. And Dr. Harold is a cattle technical services veterinarian for Merck Animal Health. He has owned his own clinic. He is a tremendous veterinarian that has worked in the beef cattle industry for many years, and I've known him for over 20 years. When we would swap cattle from Mississippi over to Texas from our different practices. So, Dr. Newcomb, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dan.
Today we're going to talk about anthelmintics and resistance. And Harold, you're just a wealth of knowledge on this subject. Can you just kind of talk me through what are some of the things that happen when we have those kind of issues on the farm?
Well, let's first talk about, the importance of deworming or doing. We know that if we don't control parasites properly, it can cost us anywhere from 25 to 35 pounds of weaning weight, and it can decrease conception rates by anywhere from 10 to 15%. So the economic impact of parasites is very real, and it's significant. So I think, if you understand that, then you understand that parasite control is paramount in a cow-calf situation. Now, resistance is something that's come up probably within the last 10 years or so to some of our anthelmintics. And the reason that's important is, we want to try and keep all our anthelmintic classes working. And in the United States, we don't have but 3, right? We have the benzimidazoles, the macrocytic lactones, which would be like the ivermectin type products, and the imidathiozoles, which would be like levamisole or tramadol, okay, prohibit. That's the only 3 classes that we have in the United States. So it's imperative that we keep those working, and it's imperative that we monitor what's going on to see how effective those things are, okay? Now, with Merck, past 10 or 12 years or so, we have kept a database, a field use database on these anthelmintics, okay? And over that period of time, we've actually seen the efficacy rate for the macrocytic lactone class go down, okay? And, you can argue, is that resistance or is it not? And we can talk about that, but I think the important thing here is that we have seen that decrease in efficacy, and what we need to try and do is to do things to make all 3 classes last as long as possible.
when we sit there and we think about what would happen if they weren't effective, there would be a huge decrease in animal well-being, a huge decrease in productivity, and we'd need a whole lot more grass.
Exactly. I mean, if you start to think about this, you know, the two most profitable things that a cow calf producer can do is to deworm and implant. Okay. And so you have to get this right. And if you think about parasites too, remember they really have to be the cornerstone of your animal health program, because parasites are basically doing three things. The biggest they do is they reduce feed intake. Doesn't matter whether that animal is grazing, you're feeding it, it's going to reduce feed intake. And so when you start reducing feed intake, then you're going to decrease productivity.
Yep.
Whether you measure that as average daily gain, weight, milk production, conception rates, whatever, when you start limiting feed or nutrient intake, you're going to see a drop in production, ever how you measure it. And then the third thing that we see with them that doesn't get talked about a whole bunch is the fact that they can inhibit that animal's ability to respond to viral disease and viral vaccines. So if you stop and think about this, parasite control has to be paramount with the producer.
That's a great way to lead in. Folks, we're going to take a break. Dr. Harold from his truck and me from my office, thanks to COVID. We'll be back right after these messages. Hey folks, Dr. Dan here. Welcome to Cattle First, as sponsored by Boehringer Ingelheim Vet Medica. And the term today, biosecurity. Biosecurity is security. It's like having a bouncer that keeps pathogens out.
When you're in the cattle business, no matter how much it's a business, it still starts with cattle. It's this basic notion that sits at the core of how we approach things at Boehringer Ingelheim. We understand when you put the cattle first, it just naturally leads to doing the right things. If you want to do well in this business, you start by doing right. Take care of the cattle, and they'll take care of you.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thomson here with Dr. Harold Newcomb, and I'm the department head of animal science here at Iowa State University, and Dr. Newcomb is the cattle technical services veterinarian for Merck Animal Health. And this isn't how we met. We met when we were both in practice, and we were working on issues for animal health between cattle that we were sending from Mississippi to feedlots in Texas, and it's just been a joy to work with Dr. Newcomb over the years. And we're talking about the importance of anthelmintics. Dr. Harold, talk to us a little bit about how we measure resistance in these cow herds, and what are some steps people would take to figure that out?
Well, if you're looking for resistance, the first thing you got to do is run a fecal egg count reduction test. Okay, and that's a long term for taking fecal samples the day that you deworm, and you want to take them again 14 days later. If you do that and you have a 90% or better reduction in that fecal egg count, then probably you don't have any resistance issue. If you do that and you see less than a 90% reduction in that fecal egg count, doesn't necessarily mean you've got resistance. It just means you've got to go back and check on a few things. Was the product given or applied correctly? And was it given according to weight or average weight? I mean, I'll say this, there's probably one thing all ranchers, farmers from all over the world have in common. If they've got to buy something to put on or in the animal, they're probably going to underestimate weight. So we see a huge underdosing of these animals, and that's probably what's led to some of the resistance issues that we see today. But to actually get to the root of it, you need to make sure that whatever you're treating with, you've given it correctly and given it in the right amount. And then if you do your fecal egg count reduction test, you can probably get a pretty good idea of whether this is actually resistance or not.
Yeah, we've found that at Cactus that when we would do it based on the pin average, or as you look at a bell-shaped curve, if those cattle are normally distributed and you take an average weight, that means you're gonna underdose half and overdose half, and
That's
and
ex-
uh, and so buying a set of scales is pretty cheap compared to some of the things you could save money on.
I would say a scale is probably one of the first, right after the head catch. The scale is what I would be putting my money into, because a scale will make you money.
Absolutely. So, any other things that the producer should be doing? We got about 30, 40 seconds before we got to take a break, but
Just make sure if you're going to do those fecal egg count reduction tests that you take 20 samples at the day that you deworm them, and 20 again from that same group of animals 14 days later. And you want to see a 90% reduction or better in that fecal egg count.
it doesn't have to be the same animals. It could just be 20 and 20.
20 and 20 out of the same cohort group. Okay, it doesn't have to be the exact same 20. And if you were doing high science here, the answer would be yes. But what we're trying to do is figure out, is there a problem? And I think this is a good way to see if there is a problem or not a problem. So it's a usable way to do it.
It's absolutely perfect. Folks, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back. We're going to talk with Dr. Harold Newcomb about what you do to prevent the issue and what you do to treat it.
When you're in the cattle business, no matter how much it's a business, it still starts with cattle. It's this basic notion that sits at the core of how we approach things at Boehringer Ingelheim. We understand when you put the cattle first, it just naturally leads to doing the right things. If you want to do well in this business, you start by doing right. Take care of the cattle, and they'll take care of you.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thomson here at Iowa State University with Dr. Harold Newcomb out of Mississippi, where he's been a veterinarian for a long time dealing with parasites in cows and calves, and we're fortunate enough to get him. He's now a technical services veterinarian for Merck Animal Health on the beef cattle side. And Dr. Harold, talk to me a little bit about prevention of resistance and some of the things that we can do to make sure we don't have anthelmintic resistance in our cow herds.
Sure. I think with anthelmintic resistance, if you're trying to prevent or delay anthelmintic resistance, the biggest thing you can do is do your diagnostics, check and do those fecal egg count reduction tests every year to see where you're at. And two, use these anthelmintic classes that we have in the United States concurrently or in combination. And remember, we just have the three, which are the benzimidazoles or the white wormers like Safeguard, the macrocytic lactones, which would be an ivermectin type product, and then the imidazole, which would be like levamisole. Those are the only three classes that we have. But if we use those classes in combination and they're effective, then we can effectively delay resistance probably for somewhere 15 to 20 years. Okay. So the biggest thing you want to go ahead.
Well, I sit there and you think about the products that we have, and there's two ways to not have resistance, and that's one is to not kill anything, and two is to kill everything. and, and so trying to delay it, would have to go to the try to kill everything route.
Just about. And like I say, using them in combination tends to work better. I mean, if you've got a worm that's 95% effective and you use it in combination or concurrently with another class of dewormer that is about 95% effective, you know, you should basically wind up with just very few worms at the end of your deworming. So one wormer kills 95% of the worms and anything that's left from the other wormer that might be resistant to the original wormer. It sounds kind of silly, but it does work. Okay. If you look at what's gone on down in Australia and New Zealand, the parasite modelers down there, you know, they've made these predictions about anthelmintic resistance, and then they made the predictions using them in combination, and they've been at now to where those models have actually played out, and it's actually shown that you can delay resistance for an extended period of time using these classes, either in combination or concurrent.
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to understand that, you know, the other thing is that the price of these dewormers has come down tremendously since when we first started using them, and so the cost is not cost prohibitive to using two. It's actually cost prohibitive to not.
Exactly. I mean, like I said, if you think about what goes on out there, the two most profitable things that the cow-calf guy can do is to deworm and implant those animals. And when you look at worms, and like I said, they affect feed intake, whether they're grazing or whether they're being fed in a feed yard or a stock or backgrounder operation, you know, you just can't afford not to deal with the parasites.
Yep. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about what you do if you have an issue with anthelmintic resistance. You're watching Doc Talk, and we'll be back after these messages.
As dependable as the sunrise, in dairy parlors, open pastures, on ranches and feed yards across America. A place where reputation is more than a name, where the science of healthier animals is a way of life. It's the responsibility that drives who we are and what we do. Every decision, every day. It's your livelihood and our responsibility.
Some call it a come from behind victory, an unlikely win, a reversal of fortune, snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. This is our moment, our victory dance, because we choose confidence. We choose Zuprevo for BRD treatment. Ask your veterinarian to prescribe Zuprevo. Zuprevo is a fast-acting, long-lasting BRD treatment that you can count on to get the job done. Choose confidence. Choose Zuprevo from Merck Animal Health.
Hi, I'm Pat Farley, President and CEO of Enzo Discoveries. I'm very excited for the year of 2019 to be here. Enzo Discoveries is going to have a breakout year in 2019. We're now a veteran-owned company. A lot of our amazing products, platelet-rich plasma, platelet-rich fibrin, we've developed these from scratch, all by veterinarians, for veterinarians. We've got adipose stem cells, bone marrow stem cells. We've got 3 or 4 other kits we're going to be releasing this year. And today's a good example. We really value our customers. We're doing a value-added service here today. We've actually flown in one of the top ultrasonographers in the country, Dr. Cooper Williams, and he's here teaching some of our best customers from around the country how to not only ultrasound, but how to effectively inject our platelet-rich plasma and use our other kits. So finally, if you'd like to learn more about us, simply go to our website, Enzo Discoveries, that's E-N-S-O Discoveries, and you'll learn more about this amazing company on the verge of going to the next level. Thank you so much.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to Doc Talk. Dr. Dan Thomson here at Iowa State University. It's my first show in my new office. We're here with Dr. Harold Newcomb, and thanks to modern technology and not thanks to COVID, we're able to shoot this show from my office and his pickup in a thunderstorm in Mississippi. But unfortunately, we didn't get together and get to break bread or do something fun and talk about families and cattle, Dr. Harold. But sure appreciate you being on.
Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure.
So let's talk about what happens if I have a problem with anthelmintic resistance.
Okay, so if you have a problem with anthelmintic resistance, you ought to look at the combination usage. Okay, the other thing too is what you want to look at is possibly forage. I mean, forage production. If you are planting, say, spring or summer grazing or fall, winter grazing type deal, if you turn the soil and you plant on a prepared seed bed, you will bury those parasite larvae that are out there on the pasture. And remember, 90 to 95% or better of your parasite problem is actually on the pasture in the forms of eggs and larvae. So if we turn that ground under, if we turn the eggs under, we will actually decrease the load of parasites on that pasture. The other thing too is if you look at forage selection, if you're going to do the grazing, if you're going to plant for grazing, you know, if you will plant forages, say from the summertime, like a sorghum, sudex, this type deal, where those forages actually grow high, then you will outgrow the parasite larvae. They can only climb so high on the grass, right? I mean, 3 to 4 inches is about as high as they go. So controlling the height of the forage, planting the right type of forage can have a huge impact on resistance. The other thing that you could do would possibly be graze different species. I don't really like that one myself because I'm a cattleman, right?
Yep.
Raise anything else, I'm a cattleman. So, you know, I'm going to look at the forage route myself as far as controlling if I have a resistance issue. The other thing too is if you look at the age of the animal, the cows, they tend to develop immunity as they age, and that immunity probably gets to be pretty good somewhere around 6 to 7 years of age. So it might be that I need to be grazing cattle and then paying more attention to what I'm deworming if I'm with the calves.
It's a huge opportunity, and it's something that you know very well. We appreciate you spending your time with us. Any parting thoughts as we head out of this?
The biggest parting thought that I would give you is always do the diagnostics, right? Define what the problem is on your operation because it may not be the same as your neighbors. Define what it is and work with your veterinarian or parasitologist and develop a deworming program that helps you meet your goals for your operation.
It's awesome advice. We thank you for taking time out to do this, Dr. Harold. With Dr. Harold Newcomb, I'm Dr. Dan Thomson. Remember to always work with your local veterinarian. And if you want to find out what we do on DocTalk, you can find us on the web at www.doctalktv.com. From Mississippi and Ames, Iowa, Dr. Harold Newcomb and Dan Thomson, we'll see you down the road.
DocTalk is brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.
As dependable as the sunrise, in dairy parlors, open pastures, on ranches and feed yards across America. A place where reputation is more than a name, where the science of healthier animals is a way of life. It's the responsibility that drives who we are and what we do. Every decision, every day. It's your livelihood and our responsibility.